So I had posted that I was going to do something a little different today. And in going through my references, I found a couple of photos, had them blown up, of this wonderful accordion player that kind of sat outside our hotel in Paris. And every morning we'd get up and see him. So I shot a few photos. I thought, although I think this photo has much better color, I think the fact that I can, and maybe an interesting composition, the fact that I can actually see that it's accordion in that photo is better, and the hand is better. Here it's a little clubby, still would make a nice painting, and I may eventually do something with it. But I thought I'd keep this handy for color. Now, the other thing is I'm working on a toned canvas. It's toned a little darker, it's a little grayer. So there's white. So you can see it's about a middle gray. And I think for the canvas, I probably used a little, maybe a little black, a little umber, a little, it looks like there's some warm in there, and some gesso. So I did a few key marks with my little tromboy pen. And I thought I'd start today doing a kind of the sketch very, very loosely. Now, when you do drawings for paintings, you have actually three ways of approaching paintings. One is don't draw at all, just paint shapes. The other is to do a very abbreviated drawing and let your paint start to correct some of that. And the third would be do a much more refined drawing. Well, this is going to be kind of the second version with a little bit of the third in there. It's going to be a little bit more refined than I generally do. So I'm going to spend a little more time with the drawing. And I just do something different. I'm going to use charcoal, number 6B charcoal. And I'm actually not going to fix it, spray fix it. So which means it'll smear when paint hits it. So we're going to start with a hat. Kind of just go up, over. I always, whenever I draw, whenever I sketch, no matter how refined of sketch I do, I always assume that I'm probably off in some way. And because of that, I always have that option of fixing it when I go to paint. In other words, you start with your drawing, and then if there are adjustments to be made, you do it with your paint. So we have one eye higher than the other. This is very often how I've drawn when I'm just doing drawings from a model. It's one of my favorite things to do is just do quick charcoal drawings from a model. So we're going to get a little bit of that. This eye is lower, which means his glasses are a little lower. We'll just put them in here as to kind of where they go. I'm not going to worry about finishing them off. Find the side of his face down to where his chin is. We have kind of a nice little silhouette. This is always a key that everyone struggles with, is how wide. And I think I'm about right here. All right. Not sure, but I think I am. These glasses a little bit more here over. That tells me where the ear is. The ear sits outside here. So we just kind of sketch where it goes. We're going to kind of put where the mouth is. He has longer chin than he does a upper lip. So we'll do his chin and the angle of his chin down. We have, kind of how this guy looks. And then we got the back of his hat, his ear sticking out, and his back of his collar. Now, the back of his collar lines up pretty much with the bottom of his nose. So we're just about right. So you look for those kind of alignments to make sure your proportioning and your gesture might be correct. And whenever I'm doing figures, it's proportion and gesture that are the two most important aspects in the beginning. All right. So we're going to kind of go down. So we have his head kind of drawn in there. A lot of artists, they draw a head that's maybe that refined, even maybe have some tone. They're very afraid, very timid about covering it. But I'm going to be pretty bold and just cover it as I feel it needs. So we're going to come in with the angle of the vest, back here a little bit, and then the angle of the strap, which is going to come right from about here, and it's going to go up over the shoulder and down like in there. And then we're going to come in with the back of that shoulder, and the back of the arm looks to me to be about here. Where it starts to break at the elbow is here. This is a shirt dangling off. You can see the upper arm here. So we're going to go right about at this point, and we're going to start down. And that's a patch. There's a patch that's almost the color as the shadow. So I'm going to put that in there, but I'm going to probably change the value, if not the color of that patch, simply because you lose the elbow otherwise. So we're going to come up where the cuff is, go up around where that strap, get the other side of the cuff, and we're just assuming I'm correct. I'm a little short. I can see that right now. Now, where am I short? So what I will do is I will check the alignment of this strap where it hits his wrist, straight up on his face. It's right there. I'm pretty close. I'm actually quite close. So what that means is this comes back, comes up, over, up, comes back. So this is probably back a little bit further, okay? And then we'll come up with the front of this. We're gonna look for the shape of that front of the vest because that's gonna give me that kind of proportion. We're gonna look for the back of the accordion, which is about here. Then you have the side, which is about here, and then it goes up and over, up and over. And the angle, important. Now I could change that angle because accordions we know, but I'm going to stay with what I see in front of me. So I'll keep the angle about there. That distance looks to be relatively correct, maybe a little short. So I brought it down from there. We're going to get a little bit of that strap, and then the thumb is going to come out right here. We're going to get this little angle. So we want to get those fingers and that thumb feeling correct. So the thumb's going to be about here, and the mitt is here, and the fingers are here. So the mitt meaning this part of the hand. Okay, so that's basically pretty much where I want things. Now this is going to come down about here, a little lower. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, then we're going to move the back of his arm just a little bit, which is okay. Now this pole comes straight down. So I'm giving a little bit of a drawing thing, it's not just painting. Another reason I kind of picked this is something, and I was kind of verbalizing this to myself, actually, talking to myself. But one of the things that I found, many artists get into ruts, and I will only paint a figure that has strong light and shadow on it, if a figure, or they get into certain types of lighting in their landscapes. Now, I'll only deal with that kind of lighting. I think that's great, but that handcuffs you. That kind of limits what you can do. So you'll only look for a certain type of thing. But I think it's very important for all artists that are basically realists to learn how to work in different light forms and work in them. Literally. I mean, don't just produce a specific. I mean, backlighting is very popular right now. It's just an example. Backlighting, very, very popular. And backlighting is wonderful. In fact, this guy has a little bit of backlighting in him himself. But that's one type of lighting. Then there's ambient lighting, which is what this is. Ambient, what does that mean? That means the lighting is kind of coming from overall. It's not coming from any one direct source. So the reason we see all this in here is there is light hitting it. But the light is a hotel right here. The light is coming pretty much overall from here, all above. All right. So things that are going to face more directly above, such as these holes, are going to have more bright light. Then there's a lot of strong light out in here. And that's why we're getting a little bit of a rim. So I'm going to do some changing as we move along in this. I'm assuming that I'm correct here with his foot and everything like that. I don't know until I step back, and there's a cup. I kind of like that cup. It's like he's playing for money. I don't know that he was. That might have just been a coffee cup, but I kind of liked that possibility. So, and this comes from here. Now, I know that I might be a little bit short, and I'm going to step back for 1 second. Nope, it feels pretty good. So I'm going to just stay with it until I start looking at shapes, because when you can really discern, when you can really discover how off or on you are, and most artists are off, but the way you can do that is by stepping back. Get the bottom of the post, and it goes up about here, and we get a little divot, and then it goes in, and then it goes out and around, and then it goes up and out and up, and then straight up. It's called a contour drawing, by the way, where you're just drawing the contour. You're not doing any interior sort of thing. So we're going to leave it at that right now. That's about as far as I'm going to get. I might put the cane in. I kind of like the angle there. I think that's kind of a nice contradictory angle. This is railings going down. This is the edge. So we're going to kind of abstract this, kind of the way it feels. I'm going to change a few values. I already know I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put this charcoal pencil down for a second, and we're going to start in with a good sized brush, my gesso brush, my handy dandy gesso brush I use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get something going in the background, keeping in mind that's middle gray. These are not going to be quite that white. They're going to be white, but they're not going to be quite that white. And the white I'm going to use is going to be a warmer white, meaning that I have a little bit of Naples or ochre into them. So I never want to go completely white. Now in this case, I'm going to actually probably mix a little too much. A little bit of burnt umber, and a little bit of ultramarine blue, and I'm just fussing around right now with color. A little bit of a yellow. And let's start up in here. It's a little more yellow than I wanted. So I'm going to add a little bit more white and blue. So we'll just take that color right into it. There we go. Now I want to be really free here because I don't want edges. I don't want to define what this stuff is back here. So I'm going to be looser than I normally would be. So we're going to go there. These umbrellas, I think I'm going to turn those and make those slightly warm. So I'm going to add a little bit of a burnt sienna to that color, and not real warm, but somewhere in this range. That's pretty good. And one of them is going to come here, and the other one's going to go here. And that's about how I want to lay them in. I don't want them to be any more defined than what I just did. And if anything, I want to go over those edges. All right. So we're setting up a background is really it. It looks like there's another one up here and a little bit going on back here. That's just continuity, I call it. Meaning if it's on one side of an element like a tree or a pole, show it going through it, show it going to the other side. And that's basically what that is. Okay, so let's kind of lay these abstract semi-darks in. I'm just going a little darker each time on my palette. And for when I say a little darker, I'm just basically using a burnt sienna, a burnt umber and an ultramarine blue. And white, obviously. So I don't want it too dark. If I make it too dark, it's going to compete with the darks in him. But I want enough of a darkness. So it's up. Maybe a little more brown into that. Just feels like it could be a little warmer. Not a lot, just a little bit. There, that's it. Back in here, it's a little warmer, but for right now, I'm just going to do it like that. And then we're going to pull some abstract elements, not too many. I don't want to dwell on that background. I really, if I put 5 minutes into it in the beginning, that's enough, because it's subordinate. It's there's a little bit of greenery I see, so I'm adding a little sap green to that same color, maybe a little bit of Naples. A little sap green and Naples. So it's all staying very gray and very close value back here. Nothing is really bright. Some greenery there, some greenery right in here, right around his knee, a little bit up in here, a little bit more. I probably go a little darker and a little more colorful. So I'm adding a little bit of ochre because it tends to have a little bit more snap and punch than just the sap itself. So we'll go there. Has some foliage back here. I don't want to overdo this. My whole concept is to keep that background very indicative, not very, very defined. That might be all I define of an umbrella. I mean, I don't know, because I will make some of those decisions as I progress into the painting. You can't make everything right at the beginning. I'm going to take a little bit more warm, kind of like I did with the umbrellas, and I mix it. It's a little darker, a little warmer, and it's going to go right here. And it's going to come down below the umbrella right here. And I kind of like the way that's looking. I also see that similar type of color back here. Paint it in. You can't see that it's a wall behind something. You see the color. So that's what you want to paint. You don't want to sit there and dwell on, okay, I got to make this an umbrella. No, it takes someone to observe this for a little bit to see that it's an umbrella. They don't see it immediately. So that's what we do. And I've said in the past, one of the ways that you can help yourself define some of that stuff, particularly when you're painting on location, is, I know you had a class, a couple of people in my class do this just this last week. You look at your subject, you find what you're going to paint, you get that in there, then you shut your eyes for about 5 seconds. So you it's gone from your vision, basically. Then you open your eyes for about 2 seconds and then close them. And that's what you paint. What you saw, what you can see in 2 seconds, not what you can see as you sit there and take your eye and carefully observe every little aspect. It's that's not how we see. We see as we focus on things. Okay. And what I mean by that is, you aren't focusing on something if I look at him, I'm not focusing. I see the background is there. It's in my periphery vision, but it's not a major part of what I'm looking at. Okay. So I think that's probably the best way of stating that. And it took me years and years to come up with that scenario, because I kept trying to figure out a way that I could get individuals to look at things and see kind of how they should paint. And when you're focused on everything, and that's almost every realist's problem when they first start, myself included, is you want to put everything in you see the way you see it, instead of what most people love about people like guys like John Singer Sargent and Soroya. So even Andrew Wyeth. Andrew Wyeth is considered very realistic. If you start looking, he loses a lot of stuff into just shape, into just shadow shape. So we've got enough in here pretty much where I feel like I can move on to the rest of the painting. I think I'm going to get a little bit of light right in here. And then right before we come to his face, gets a little bit of a dark. And what that dark is going to allow us to do is define his face more with that nice light edge. So we're going to put something like, it's a little warmer than I wanted, so I put some blue into it. That feels better. Okay, kind of like the movement of the strokes even isn't 100% accurate, but now I have something I can build upon. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to build upon what is down there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start relating. Almost all the colors and values in the character are darker than anything here. There are some darks back here, but remember, I've diminished those to a degree. So I'm still kind of concentrating on that. So I think I'm going to set this down for a second. I'm going to pick up a number 8, nice little short handled rosemary brush, and it's a filbert. So I don't want to go, I like the color in this better than the color in this. So even though that's giving me value relationships, it's not giving me quite the color. So I'm going to liven it up a little bit more. And what we'll start with is his face. A little bit livelier, a little more. And for that, in this kind of gray-green color, I just mixed burnt sienna. So we're livening it up just a little bit here. It's probably a little more than I wanted, but it's okay in the beginning. You got to start somewhere. And then you build from where you've started. So if you're too colorful, then as you can continue to paint, you put less colorful pigments in there. You don't keep it as colorful as it once was. So it's pretty basic conceptually. It's not anything extremely far-reaching and groundbreaking. It's like, wow, that's an incredible idea. Of course, it's not. It's logic, which I have always said. A lot of painting is logic, but if you only use logic, and this is personal opinion, if you only use logic, you lose some of that artistic flavor, some of those interpretive things that one artist will do over another artist. One artist may have a tendency to use more blues or something. Another artist may have a tendency to neutralize everything, where another artist, even though they're all painting the same stuff, another artist may want to exaggerate and emphasize, say, color nuances, things of that nature. I'm probably more personally in the latter. where I want to exaggerate, emphasize, but stay relatively naturalistic. But at times I say, what the hell? And I just will go for a lot of interesting color variations. And his nose, I always make noses. I learned this from Don Putman. Always make noses a little bit, noses and ears a little warmer than the rest of the face.
Why?
Because they are. That's a good question. They are. Cheeks are too. Foreheads and chins tend to be a little grayer. Chins tend to be cooler. Foreheads tend to be a little more just neutral. And that has to do more with physiology. But, you know, if you're more of a figure nerd, you're really going to be aware of that. If you're more of a landscape nerd, you maybe know that from schooling if you took it, but it's not going to be in the forefront of your wish list, so to speak. Gonna go a little darker. So we're staying neutral. I want to neutralize, so don't go quite as red. Maybe about the same value in the forehead. A little darker. Because the hat is diffusing, so we are getting some nice darker tones down in there. It's probably a little too dark there. A little bit under his lower lip, his upper lip. Now you notice I'm staying with this brush. I don't want to get too picky right now. That's why. I want to at the end, I want to get real picky. I want it to be right. So damn right at the very end, I'm going to get ultra picky. I'll question everything I do more. Right now I'm painting, for lack of a better way of describing it, a little bit with like a little bit, not totally, because I've gone much crazy, but a little more reckless abandon. All right.
Lynn wants some advice about the more she's studying, the more her paintings are losing their spontaneity. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, it's because you're studying. The closer you get to overanalyzing, that's where you have to keep those two things in check. You have to keep your knowledge that you're learning and that you're picking up, and you have to keep that in check, but kind of figure you've got it in your head. You know it, and you don't have to sit there and analyze it as you do it. So paint, it's, I hate to use that. No, I don't. Paint like you know what you're doing, and just assume you're wrong. Just go back and correct. And you're probably trying to be too precise right from the beginning of your painting, most likely. The reason I'm saying it, though, these are generally problems that when people say what you're just saying, I've heard this a lot too, that they've lost the spontaneity and spontaneity. And it's almost always because they're going too slow and they're trying to be too perfect right from the beginning. I'm being closer to a refined state on this one than I am usually, for those of you guys that are watched. So we got enough light, and I don't want to do any more into his face right now. I'm going to move on to his vest and so forth. Now the vest is a little darker. The shadow down here, not real dark, little kind of ochre. Ochre, that means full of ochre. And a little more medium. My ochre there is a little bit stale, and it's a little stiff. So I feel like I need to add a little medium to it so it'll flow. I don't have to work too hard to get it to go down. A little more ochre. Maybe throw a little turp into it because it's still feeling sticky. See, now I want that darker. So right next to my pot of color, I already had a darker color, kind of a darker neutral mixed up. And it's brown, blue. And that kind of gives me, so you can almost begin to see that in terms of value and color, it's kind of coming close somewhat to the image that I'm trying to portray. All right. Up in here, we're going to get a little bit more. Now he has a little backlight. It's happening right back in here. It's going to be a fun little addition as I approach completion to really kind of give it what I call zing. It's another technical term I like to use. Zing meaning pop. That doesn't help either, does it? Kind of something, an emphasis,
I was
a
gonna
little
say,
color snap that kind of takes it out, takes it from being dull. Let's put it that way. Okay, just punching a few values, but I don't want to go too far with it. Where else do I see that value? Now, as long as I've got on my brush, I might as well use it, huh? So we're going to go behind, down in there's a shadow down under that arm, really dark, and it's going to blend. It's going to kind of right into the accordion itself. I'm going to just pull it down because we know we're going to do some gradations. A little bit right there, kind of up in here. It's going to go into the, I'm going to cool that off just a little bit, let it move its way from here into the, it's a light pole actually. This little character, I mean, I shouldn't call him a little character, but he was, you know, you find these guys and I often wondered what they do, what their life is like. You know, he was out there every morning. We'd get up, you know, even we could even see him from the window at 7 o'clock. He'd be out there, and he'd be playing. And it's near, this area is near Montmartre for any of you that have been to France or Paris, particularly. And it's down below. It's not right up in the heart of that, but there's a lot of musicians, artists, people like that around there. And this guy was there every morning playing. And so I shot many photos. I have a lot of photos of him from different angles and almost no sunlight because almost in the mornings when we were there, it tended to be really kind of gray. But I kind of like the ambient. I can do, you know, a friend of mine, I'm just thinking of this. I always like to let you guys know who I'm referring to. Some of you may know, but another artist that I know that lives in the Petaluma area, Camille Priswater. Camille, we were talking one time and Camille goes, by the way, I agree with her on this, but she says, so many people just hate painting on gray days. And she says, you can actually do more with color. I agree completely because you aren't, there's no limitations. You can exaggerate that color and you can see differences in color because you don't have one color that is, the sun is not illuminating it so bright that one color is popping out at you and just pushing everything. So you can really study color probably more on gray days, I think, than you can on sunny days. Now, don't get me wrong. I love painting on sunny days. I think it's great. But, you know, I was out on Tuesday. Tuesday I was out painting with a class and it was not only was it gray, it was cold. And it was fun. Oh, I tell you one thing about painting on a gray day. You're not going to be chasing the light. You can paint a little longer because the light isn't going to change. Okay, so we have kind of basically that. Now I'm working mainly on the darks, as you can see. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is pants. Pants have a little more blue in them, so I'm taking blue, taking burnt umber, and my palette today, by the way, titanium white, Naples yellow, yellow ochre, little cad orange hue, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt sienna, and I have both a little bit of burnt umber and asphaltum laid out today. I don't always do that, but I already had asphaltum on my palette and I kind of wanted to lay out some burnt umber, so that's why I have them both. All right, there it is, blue, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and whatever residue I still have in the brush. And I know I can go darker, but that's pretty much where I want it. Let's get the front of that leg. See how fast you can get that in there? Now, I'm beginning to get my shapes down so I can actually stand back and say, now, how are these shapes? I have them a little short here. I don't mind that. It's making them feel a little more hunched. And since I'm not doing a portrait, I'm really trying to do a character. I kind of like that because I like that feel of it not being extremely comfortable. It's not that he's kind of hunched over playing, maybe really into it. I don't know. So we're going to go with this other leg, kind of with the contour that I see. Down there, and down here. Don't try, no, I didn't have enough drawing down to see whether how correct I was. This knee has got to come all the way out here though. I'm way off. Okay. So I picked up a little bit of that color on my brush when I did that. And so I kind of remixed this, and I'm going to come down right, let's see, right there. And we'll go up again, go out, a little bit more blue than I was hoping. So I threw a little more umber back into it. Kind of, I like that edge very much. This goes down here. Let's intermix those colors if they're a little off. All right, now I'm going to stand back for 1 second. The shapes are feeling fine. Might be a little short here, but it doesn't bother me. Let me put it that way. And I have a tendency to do my figures too long once I get the head in. So if I think it's short now, chances are I may be right. So I'm going to take that color. I'm going to take some alizarin crimson to it and mix it back into that burnt sienna, because he has these kind of dark maroon colored shoes. I'm going to make the shoes go a little bit down a little further. Color's fine. Color's fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's got a little, it's similar value, but more red, which is exactly what I was shooting for. It's got the N on there on the shoes. You know what that N stands for, you guys? Nelson. Now it's New Balance. But when I was running a lot, I used to buy New Balance. I used to tell everybody I only buy them because of the N. Okay, so I'm going to get back for a second. That feels okay. Feels maybe a little short here. I might want to link them maybe to about here, cut them down a little, just a little bit, which means the pants would come down a little bit further, which is okay. And I can take the pants color, which I haven't done, and I'm going to take asphaltum and ultramarine and maybe a little alizarin. Those are the three darkest colors in my palette. And I'm going to go a little bit darker right here. Oh, I like that. Okay, well, I've got that color mixed up. That deep, deep dark. Now, I can't get any darker. Let's get this in so I can see if it's working. Now, remember, there are guys that pay little accordions, giant accordions. This is kind of medium. So if I'm a little off on the side, if I still make it look good, it'll be fine. You notice how I just gave myself an excuse to be wrong? Artists are really good at that, by the way. You know, well, it's wrong. Well, I meant it to be. Never heard that before, said a lying instructor. Never understood that, by the way. Sometimes a person's taking a class or a course, and they're taking it because they want to learn, right? And then an instructor will give them a comment, a criticism, and they'll come back with, well, that's what I wanted. Well, think about that comment for a second, if you will. Why the hell are you taking the class then? If that's what you wanted, just paint. Don't take classes, just paint. If you want to learn, and I think sometimes it's really good to learn things that, as a lot of people refer to, takes it a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's why sometimes I think it's really good to just start painting and don't draw. Just literally start with painting the shapes. Because that takes almost everybody that I know out of their comfort zone. Yet I do know painters that's how they paint. And I work both ways. Like as I began this session today, I mentioned that there's more than one way to kind of get your initial information down, your drawing, so to speak. All right. One is to do a very refined drawing. One is to don't draw at all and just start painting shapes. And the other is to do a very abbreviated drawing. And as I mentioned, I generally go somewhere between the second and the third. Depends on what I'm painting. If it's something crucial, if it's a portrait, I'm going to be more on the really get that drawing down side. If it's something like just a head study, I'm not going to be that crucial. I'm going to be much more interested in the character of the painting and the character that I'm getting on the canvas. So I'm not looking necessarily for it to be as 100% accurate as I might. So just putting some darks in, still using that same brush. I don't like switching a lot of brushes in the very beginning. I do that. I catch myself doing that more towards the finish of a painting, not so much in the beginning. So go there. Now under, is it dark? As it's actually a cast shadow. Most people would call it a line. So it's kind of a calligraphic stroke. One of the things, I think I want to shorten this a little bit. The strap's going to go behind this part of the shirt, down to about here. And let's fix that. Kind of like that stroke. And then on this side of the shirt, it's going to come up over the shoulder and work its way down. There's a highlight in there. Most people are going to try and leave the highlight. Don't. Okay, so I basically have got the shapes on it, not without painting the shirt and the hand in there because they're both relatively light. I can kind of look at this and see if I like it in terms of its proportion, its gesture. And that's that first stage. It isn't a complete lay-in because I haven't laid everything in, but it's approaching a complete lay-in, which is, in my opinion, the very first stage of every painting. Now, question might arise, because I've had it. Do you paint everything and finish it and then move to the next area? I know a couple of artists that do that. The answer for me is absolutely not. That's not what I'm interested in. Then I lose, as was questioned earlier about the spontaneity of a painting, you lose that. If you try and finish something, you're better to keep it something very vague and then try and bring it up. It's, I akin it to someone who is looking through a lens finder and has everything out of focus and then has to bring everything into focus. So I like to think of painting that way, where nothing is really focused and refined. And then the closer I get to completion, the more I make a decision, how refined do I want to be in certain areas? That's my input on the question of your paintings not looking as spontaneous as you may like them. That's the way to keep them feeling spontaneous and looking. Don't almost just put marks in. And where approximate the color and the value where you think they go, but don't overstate it. Don't try and make it something, make it a nice mark. Okay, now he's got kind of a blue shirt on. So I took the color I had in my brush, which is, I think this color up in here, added white to it, and I'm going to add blue to it. So I don't always remix a color, or not remix, but start from scratch when I'm mixing. Quite often in the beginning, I use some of the residue in my brush and I let that intermingle with the new color. And in doing so, you will keep more harmony in your painting. I want to go a little darker than that. And it's probably a little bluer than I want. So I added blue and added umber. Those are my two go-to semi-neutral colors that are gray with white. That's pretty good. That's probably not exactly what I want, but it's not bad. Okay, so we're going to go down here, up here, up there. We're going to get the cuff, bottom part of it. That's good. Ooh, I like that stroke. Why do I like that stroke? I like the edge. Oh, it's a nice one too. Crap, 2 nice strokes. Oh my God. And let's get a little bit of that in. I'm going to do something with that patch. Remember I said he has a patch on his arm. So I'm going to make it a little lighter. I want it lighter than the shadow. So it is right there. And right. That's good enough. Okay. And let's get the hand in. Back to my burnt sienna. I already got kind of a flesh tone mixed up. Little, we don't want it to, it should be similar to that. That's a little too light. That's closer. Probably a little too much color. gray it down with a little blue. Let's pop it in there, okay? I don't know what's on the back of his hand. It looks like a bandage or something, and I'm not going to put it in there. It's a white little patch. But I do want to get the feeling of his thumb and the feeling of the fingers, where the fingers go. They go probably a little higher, probably about here. It should feel like a hand, even though there's no detail into it. It should feel. It shouldn't feel like a claw. It shouldn't feel like a blob. Okay. Now, with all this, we're going to get the rest of this laid in and then go back and start into the modeling stage. We're still not modeling. So I'm going to stay with my umber and ultramarine blue, as dark as I can go. Umber, ultramarine blue. Sometimes I'll throw a little, I can throw a sap green, I can throw a red in, but we're going to come in right here. You know, this would be actually more helpful if I use a bigger brush, but I'm staying with the number 8 right now, only because I already have the paint on it. Idea-wise, it probably would have been better if I had used my gesso brush. And there's a little white patch on it. I might put that in there, I don't know. Right now, I'm not going to. The only reason I'd put it in is it might help define the, we want to lose some of that vest, by the way, in the character. Okay, get the bottom of it. But now there's very, very dark underneath, right here, really dark. And then there's a little bit of a cast shadow right there. And it goes back to this. So let's get this in, except for the very light on the edge. Let's just kind of dry brush it in a little bit. Up here, top. So there's my first, there's my downside of that. Then it goes into this. And then finally, the bottom of it. And it doesn't matter, my proportions are wrong, it doesn't really matter. We're still gonna go real dark down here. Dark, okay. So we've got that in, now we need this dark. And there's a lot of different darks in there, but I'm just gonna lay it in as one to begin with. And if I have time, I'll get more into it later. If I don't have time, it'll stay simple. So we're gonna go just dark. I'm slightly warmer than I wanna be, and I'm just throwing more ultramarine into it. That's all. And we'll come down here, right there, go over, get the perspective right. Even if the color is wrong, don't get the perspective wrong. It'll just look like you didn't know what you were doing. And there, you know, down. Added a little bit of terp so I can cover more rapidly. See, that's sharp edge. What I'm doing now is not painting a sharp edge. Because I'm painting, if you paint along the edge, you sharpen the edge. If you paint against the edge, you loosen the edge. Okay, so I'm painting slightly against it. That's about where the edge is. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, now I'm double checking this stuff. It looks pretty good. I'm okay. That looks okay. This probably could go a little stronger. I may put the cane in, I may not. I'm not going to right now. I'm going to look back in here, try and be a little bit more accurate right at this point. Just a little bit, not going to worry a lot. Now, the one part that I didn't get in so far, and I'm going to clean my brush a little bit with terp because I don't want to switch brushes, and I'm going back to the blue shirt color. And it's the collar right here. Right there, it's right here. It's a nice tactile paint that I got down there, just then. It's a little darker than I wanted, so I've got a bunch of darks mixed up around it. And I'll just grab some of them and go a little darker there, out here, and a little lighter back there. Okay, and there's a little bit back behind the strap. I didn't draw it in, but I indicated it. All right, a couple of the folds, well, it's a little darker than I have. Maybe I'm going to warm it up just a touch. We get a couple of these folds in, like right there, up there. Bring it on down, a little warmer. So I already have some warm. I had a little bit of the burnt sienna mixed into that. And just it flavors up, for lack of a better word, your color. So your color, you're not just painting dark blue on light blue. You're actually seeing it change a little bit to a warmer, cooler color. Now, the degree that you do that can really work or hinder your painting. So it's like all forms of painting. Anything you do can really help it or can really hurt it. So at about 45 minutes, we basically got, I don't worry about this color or this color. We basically got it laid in. Now, that gives me about the other half of the time that I'm going to do some sort of refinements to this piece. So first thing I'm going to do is, I don't want this as dark as it is. So I mixed up darker, warmer version of the blue shirt. Do it there, and there. And we start to give a little definition to that. All right, let's go back to the man's face, because I started with that. And I'm going to switch over to a smaller brush. I'm looking for a number 4. There it is. Got a nice number 4 chisel or flat. Now, so we're going to look at the guy's face. I'm going to start to look in these areas and see a little bit more modeling. So what am I going to use? I have warm undertones, and it's slightly cooler as the light hits it, because it's not unusual when it's ambient light. So right there, I just took the flesh tone I had mixed up, lightened it a little bit with the shirt color and a little bit more blue. So it's just slightly lighter. We're not doing anything major. Down around his jowl, it gets cooler. It's really obvious right here, but it's really close value. Close. Okay, so now when I stand back, I like the flavor that I'm getting in his flesh tones. I can see in the interior of the ear, I can get warmer or darker and warmer. So here we go right now. It's just whatever darks I have mixed up, I mixed a little bit of alizarin into it. Alizarin being extremely dark. Cut that down just a touch. Okay. I see it get a little bit darker, and this is where you have to start to look carefully. You can't just, when I'm first working, I'm just kind of looking at it basically. Now I'm starting to look more carefully. I'm going to get a little bit of what we call a laugh line. So we get every little thing that I do like this, hopefully, is going to give it more form. All right, now the lips, not quite as dark, but almost right about here. They're up real far. They're up about here. I don't like to paint them as a line. Some people, when I draw a line in, it just feels contrived. It just doesn't feel correct. So we're going to put that other eye back there. It's okay. The head is shaping up. The reason I say that, I just stood back just for a second. Now, we get a pull off of what a lot of times people refer to as the mustache line. It's a muscle that occurs right here, and then it comes down about here. So there we go. That helped give a little bit more. Now I'm going to lay off that. Now I got it pretty far, but now you lay off. I'm not going to go back and fuss on it simply because I'm going to do that later. I want to get enough of it set up so that at the very end, I do whatever I do in terms of refinement type strokes works. But if I don't have enough of a foundation there, no matter what I do, is still going to be kind of ring hollow. It's just not going to feel convincing. So, all right. Well, I've got that real dark. I'm going to go right. I want to draw lines. I want to draw the top bottom plane of the fingers right there. 1 finger, 2 fingers, comes down lower. This divides the third and the fourth, your little finger. And then the back of the mitt, starting about here, gets just a touch darker. So as long as I've got that dark on my brush, why not put it in? And you start to indicate the feeling of the hand without really getting into it, without really getting in there and trying to perfect it too soon. Once again, that will keep you from getting to losing spontaneity in your painting. So you only fix things when it's time to fix them. Now, when is it time to fix them? Well, I have to be there to tell you. You know, you will discover that. You just got to paint a lot. The longer you can hold off, and the more things you can see that you can do to your piece to make it work without finishing it off, without really going in there and finishing it, the more convincing and the better your painting will be. Let those refinements occur at the very, very end, and you determine when the end is. The end might be 1 hour into your painting, and it might be 4 days into your painting. That's up to you. Okay, so everything's looking a little dull. Perfect. It's exactly what I was hoping. Sounds stupid, but that's exactly right. I don't want it to get too punchy at this point. So, but I am going to take the concept of the back of this vest, and I'm going to lighten it a little bit before I really hit lights on it. Much the same that I did in his face. That's not enough. Let's try it again. That feels pretty good. I don't want to get too light too fast, but I want it to be lighter than some of the other areas. So I'm using some of the colors that I already have mixed on my palette. There. And we get, this is, the color I've got in my brush is this color right here. So you don't always, if you save areas on your palette, you do not always have to mix a new color. A little lighter than I wanted, but it's okay. Go back with the real dark, super dark. Chop down on the top of that cuff and start to lose. Well, it's already getting kind of lost. I don't really have to do too much. There's a little bit of a light, just a little bit. Happens right about there. And there's a light down at the bottom, right about there. So these are little tiny things, but the cumulative factor of all these little things that I do is what makes the painting complete. It isn't complete in 5 minutes. It isn't going to be complete. It'll be complete if you appropriately lay in all the necessary elements, and then at the very end, you go back and snap in the refinements. Now, the concept that I've done for many, many years now is this quick study concept. That's a different kind of painting. That is a painting that is for teaching. It's not for producing a ultra finished painting. So the purpose of that is to learn, and learn by exploration, and not put too much, and this is a hard thing to do, everybody, too much concern with the results. Obviously, you want them to look good. I mean, that goes without saying. But if part of it is really good and the whole thing isn't, then you've learned something. I saw a little bit of a warm back there, so I threw it. But you notice how I put it in where it's just not refined. So that's, again, that goes back to that concept. I don't want to refine anything too soon. And once again, that is how you keep your painting from looking, you lose the spontaneity. It's the refinement that kind of destroys the spontaneity. And every artist, this is my lightest light right now. It's off-white color, but every artist is going to come up with how they want, how do you want your painting to look when it's complete? I can't answer that because it's your painting. I can answer how I want mine. You have to make that decision. That decision will come from 3 or 4 sources for all of you. One of the sources is observation. Look at a lot of other art. What is it? What is it that really turns you on? What is it that really kind of excites you and go, man, I want to do that? Okay, that's one. The other thing is experience. What do you have the capabilities of at this particular time? Maybe 6 months or a year from now, you're going to have capabilities beyond that, and the confidence is going to be there. Which the only way you build confidence and keeping your paintings looking fresh, the only way you build that is work. Do it a lot. Paint a lot. 1 painting, 2 painting, 100 paintings, it's not going to do it. You just got to do it all the time. And truthfully, what are you learning to paint for? You're probably learning to paint because you want to keep painting. So think about it. Keep painting. So right now, we're going to take a little bit of light on the side, not the bright light, that's at the very end, but a little bit of light before it gets bright. Has a slightly green-brown flavor right about, let's try that. It's close. It's probably a little too green. So just kill it with any of my warms. Like I don't like that hard edge. It's a little too hard edge. So I kind of come back and scumble it back down. Up here, there's a little bit more. And about here. And then we'll lighten the whole thing and then go back with the dark if I have to. Okay. That's about all I really want to do right now. I don't want to overdo it. Remember, if I could sit there another 10 minutes and work on that, and it would be so neat. You guys would go, wow. But you know what? It wouldn't work with the rest of the painting. So let's keep it. It's fresh. It's coming along. It's got some snap. There's some things I need to do to it. Some is the background, but a lot of it is just that refinement stage that I talked about right in the beginning. We've got to go through. You got to go through stages before you get the refinement. I know I've mentioned this before, but think of it this way. What you're doing is as you're painting, for the whole painting, you're setting up for the next stage. You're always setting things up for that next thing that's going to come on top of it. So you're not doing something that is literally a finished piece right then. You're setting up because you know you're going to come back and you're going to finish that at the very end. And it's going to look damn good. Okay, so we're going to come in with some real subtleties right now. We're going to start on that because we got about 35 minutes left. We're going to start in there. It's not real warm. Don't want to get too warm with it. It's light and it's semi-neutral, maybe a little bit of yellow thrown into it. So there, a little bit of ambient light, striking it. Not sure exactly where it's coming from. Not that I need to. I just want it to feel basically correct there as it comes down right there. A little bit right there. And we got that, and we want one more about here. Okay. So that's probably all I'm going to get done. We got this up here. We want to come in a little cooler and lighter under the ear. Not light enough. So one more time. There we go. Now we're starting to define things. All right. That's exactly what I want to do. I want to get to the point where I'm ready to define. All right. I almost am there. I'm going to take my gesso brush again. And I'm going to go back to these light colors. And I added a lot of terp to it, probably a little too much. I can feel it. But I'm going to add some cool, a lot of white and some cool. Cool meaning blue in this case, not green. But it's because it was quite warm. And we're going to try it right here in the beginning. Well, not bad. That's actually pretty good. So we're going to recarve the top of that shoe. I haven't come with a white edge yet. So there is a very white light edge. We're just kind of coming in. Okay, I'm going to go a little, keep that same light for just a second. Right. And it defines up here. And then it starts getting darker and cooler. So I just added blue to it, picked up a little bit of burnt sienna because the blue went too cold. And we'll try this. Too cold, too dark, too fast. So I just added white to that color. Try it again. That's a little better. And you'll see we get a little bit of a gradation, and it's going to go a little darker. Blue, brown. If it goes too blue, I'll bring more of the burnt sienna into it. There we go. Let's put that in. So we're starting to get this thing. We're shaping up. This, I think, because I've got this going down, I've changed my perspective a little bit. It's a little flatter. So I can either change this to work with that, which I think I'm going to do. I was going to change this, but I don't think I'm going to. Hopefully you understood what I meant when I just said all that. There's a perspective problem, I see, in other words. And there are two ways of correcting it, which 90% of the time when there's a perspective problem, there is more than one thing you can do. Okay, now it gets a little lighter as it goes over to the right. A little lighter, right in here. A little bluer and lighter too. Slightly bluer, slightly lighter, right about here. And then that's just kind of works its way back into that color. And maybe a little bluer. And right as it approaches, yep, too blue. Throw some more warm into it as it approaches that edge. I just stood back for a second, analyzing it very quickly. Looks pretty good, except I think I should go a little darker right here. Maybe just a little darker before it gets up there. Bring a little bit of light in. Now, I told you the two things I can do to fix this. I'm going to do one of the two. Either I can make this the same angle, but I'm going to flatten this out because it really is a flatter angle. So all I have to do is take my two dark colors, the ultramarine, and get enough medium on it so it covers. And in this case, the asphaltum. And we're going to take it straight across, meaning that way. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm paralleling the bottom. And then this, we're going to do almost the same thing. We're going to do that. Now, stand back. It feels pretty good. Feels like I could probably take this, scuff this up. I'm going to throw a little warm into it because it feels, I see a little warm. There's some leaves. So I'm just going to throw a little burnt sienna into it and just kind of scuff it in here like this. Okay. Prospectively, I can live with it. It doesn't bother me. So now we're going to go to what I would call, oh, there's one more thing I need to do, by the way, the cup. There's the refinement stage. I do want to get that cup in. Normally I wouldn't, but I like the concept of it, of a cup being right here. So it's laid in now, that's all. And come in with that foot. And see if we can clarify just a little. There we go. Now, kind of like there's a looseness here that works really well. So I'm complimenting myself. I'm going to go back to number 4. We're going to start with a hat. And we're going to start that refinement stage. Not going all the way to white, but we're going pretty light and with a little bit of probably ochre mixed to it. And it's going to be most of the hat. Nope. I thought I had it light enough. I didn't. There we go. Okay. So we're mixing. This is basically a value problem at this point. You want the values to be close enough so you depict the illusion of form without sitting there and blending. And once again, blending will automatically take away from the spontaneous work if you really try and overblend. So you're usually better off to just indicate. I use that word a lot in teaching, whether I'm teaching more refined painting or whether I'm teaching a more, what would you call it? A quick study type of painting. I really do use that word quite often because I think it's an important word, indication. When you paint, you are indicating. So get that right there. There we go. And a little bit on the back of the hat. Okay. So we've almost refined that hat to where I wanted, but not really. And I'll show you what I mean. We need to pop it. And so I'm cleaning the brush a little bit, the number 4. I'm taking white some medium, and just barely letting my brush touch the naples. So what it ends up is a white, but a warm white. Now I can make this a cool white too, but I'm going to keep it warm. The value is what's important here. And consistency in color. So if I'm going to make a slight warm, then I need to make that when any edge lighting I need to put on it. Now I can use blue back here if I want to, so I can have it come up over the top. And I'm going to keep that color handy because I see right now he gets a bright reflection right here. Right back in that. Now, with right next to the color that I was just using, I took another swab of white and I'm going to bring just a tad of blue to it. So it's a cold white, where I used a warm white up here. I'm going to use a cold white. Right there. And I'm going to let that cold white kind of almost bring itself down into the interior of the hat. Okay, so that hat now feels pretty defined. I'm not going to dwell on it any longer because it's the hat. It's not. I don't want to take that and make that, you know, perfection. And if I wanted to later on, I still have the opportunity to go back and perfect anything else I really want to perfect at that point. So let's be a little bit more careful. We started in a little bit of the modeling. I'm going to do a little modeling in the ear. Okay, I looked at my time. I've got about it's about 25 minutes. So we're going to work our way down the figure. And hopefully I have a couple minutes after that to do a couple other little refinements. But that's basically what we're doing, working our way down the figure. So I'm looking at these, God, I can't get it, these subtle interior tones in the ear, and they're too strong. But the back of the ear has some light coming through it. And so I see a redder color. So I took, this is way exaggerated. It doesn't bother me. So I may leave that. I thought it would bother me. A little bit more in the interior of the ear. Okay, now the glasses and around, I keep banging that. I'm going to take my little liner. Oh, I'm using my liner because I'm doing glasses and they are lined. So this is the first time I'm actually making lines. We've got, this comes up to about here. So I'm really shooting for accuracy now. Where the base is laid in pretty loose. I'm using a little finger, and I usually rest my little fingernail when I put my hand down like that. Comes down here. And about this point, at the bottom of the frame, and then the top of the frame, and then the way it goes up, and almost blends with what there is of an eyebrow and a little bit of an eye interior. And then you get a little bit of light happening right on the side of the bridge of the nose, and that is right. That's almost right. Or as I like to say, it's almost good. Okay, so now I have a little bit of an indication. Now let's fix the nose. Part of what we're going to do is add some color, add a little form. So we're going to warm that nose up. Remember I said I'm always going to warm it. See how far I can push it and still make it feel comfortable. And I'm doing this because I don't want it to just be too flat and dull. So that warmed it up quite a bit. Now I'm going to give a little modeling to it. All I'm doing is adding a little bit of a lighter grayer flesh tone on top of it. And if I look carefully, I see a light here. And boy, this is hard to see. So when you guys get into painting a head, some of the thing that's going to make it successful is practicing head painting a lot, because you know what to look for. All right. So that worked pretty well. Now, let's go on I'm going cool and light. Where I see a cool light besides here is here. Okay. And I'm being very critical and it works. I'm gonna go back. Now I'm going to push the mouth, some of the darks in and around the mouth, just a little bit darker, taking whatever darks I have mixed up and adding alizarin's. Number one, I think I'm going to do the bottom of the nose. Now we're going to go, I don't like to draw a line. I like to indicate points. So in this case, one of the points is the corner of the mouth. And I just indicated that, but I have to come back in and clean it up there. So we're going to hold that as correct. Up again, around this jowl right in here, I see a cool. Okay, so his head is, I'm not going to do a bunch more to it other than add the edge lights, which is really going to start to pull it off. Why? That's simply because I've given enough structure within the ambient shadow region. So there's enough structure there to make it feel right. Now, if I just zing a few bright lights, which I already have mixed up, it's the white, medium, and Naples. It's those three elements. And we get a nice loose tip. I'm going to clean my finger because I've been resting it. And we're going to put a little bit of edge light on the nose. Right there. Put less than you think you need. You can always add more. And you can always take out, if you put too much in, you can always take it out too. Comes around the corner, down around the bottom of the chin, and then down as that chin turns. And look how that, it automatically comes alive. Now, the reason that works, and I probably didn't push enough, but the reason that works is I've put interior tones that have structure. Hopefully you follow me with that. I've got enough interior tones in that head that has structure. Now, if I wanted to, I can push some of those interior tones. I'm going to do it right now, a little farther. So a little bit more on the nose, maybe a little bit. I'm just looking, pulling down from the cheek as it goes up. Right on this part of the forehead, I can see a little light. So what we've done is kind of finished off that head. Now, the same thing's going to happen on the back of it. We're going to take the blue color that I already mixed up. We're going to bring it down, let it fade, and then very strongly illuminate the back of the ear and the vest. That's too strong. It's too thick, but it's the right color. Now you can see how if you set it up, remember what I said, that's it. Probably one of the most important things I've said the whole session is you're always setting up for the next stage. So I've been setting up for these lights. And the way I've been setting it up is by doing a subtle modeling in the interior of the head. And the subtle modeling is what makes those lights work and make it feel complete. So we come back now, right here, very strong. The back of that vest, very light, particularly up here. Then it dissipates as it goes down. Now, if that edge is too harsh, I can take any brush in my arsenal here. And this is a number 2, and I'm just going to soften that edge. Did it once there, now we'll come back over it, and you can do it 2 or 3 times until you get the softness that you want. Now, let's come back on. I see a light, very nice, beautiful light, right here in the interior of that accordion, right there. Right, I've got a couple dark smears that I muffed up in there. And you just got to keep moving. Keep that brush. Make a guess if you don't know what to do, okay? And then if you're wrong, go back and fix it. I never heard that before, have you? I say it over and over. But if it's wrong, go back and fix it. But put it in like, boy, this is exactly right. You've got to approach it with that kind of an attitude. This is right. And then later on, without anybody knowing, you can go, whoa, did I make a mistake? It's just, again, I'm going to bring up one of my strongest mentors, was Don Putman. He always said he thought what made a painting really great were the mistakes, which I thought I didn't like hearing that, but then the more I thought about it, I understood it more. And I do understand what he meant by that. It's that's what takes it away from also being a photograph. So we're going to put some of this right there. Not going to try and paint the little knobs. At least it starts to feel like an accordion. Now, I also see, interesting, I didn't catch this earlier. I also see, this is what happens when you look back into things. I can see a little bit of a band coming right here. Now, I made it stronger than it is. So if I go over it 2 or 3 times, I push it right back into that color because I'm painting on with paint. I also see a corner right there. And it comes down right there. And that just helps give me a little bit of flavor and structure in that accordion. Back of it's about here, and it does have a little light in it. So I'll pop that in there. Got to go into the we're going to put a little bit of light on the edge of that accordion at the very end. Also, I think I'm gonna go back with a couple of darks. Yeah, that's good enough. Fix that. I'm going to try and do that little strap that goes over his arm. It goes over. Oh, I see what that is. I just caught that. That's what this is. The light. That's the strap. This strap catches a little bit of light up here and then gets completely dark as it goes over his arm. So that helped. Now, you see on that shoulder, there's a couple things I want to do to the vest. I don't have too much to do to the pants. So, but there's a couple things I want to bring a little bit more light right there. Not enough. Let's try it again. Right there. And there. Okay. And, but what's happening is the light that is hitting back here, that bright light, is also hitting on the back of his vest. I mean, excuse me, on the strap. And it's about there. So now we've got that. Now you see we left a hole here. We got to start to cover some of these. The hand is okay. It's not a hand painting. It's a figure painting. So if I have time, I can actually add a little bit of emphasis right here and a little bit on the thumb up there. Probably need to clean it up a little bit, but it's okay. So what we're going to do is move into some other areas. Let's go back into the shirt. We're going to take the number 4 this time, and we're going to start to add some subtle lights into that shirt. Again, they're going to be a little bit on the cool side, simply due to the fact, okay, I'm a little bit behind here. I got to step it up, guys. So I want to go a little lighter than that. We're going to go right here, a little lighter still. It's not as bright as that bright light that's hitting, but it's the same light. It's just not getting full strength. We're getting it right here, and we're getting it right there. A little bit lighter, right at that elbow. Gets almost light, almost really light as it goes down the shirt. The closer to this edge, the lighter it gets. Now, not quite that light. So we go back to the other blues and we'll put in, no, it's too light. Gray it down. Let's try it one more time. That's better. We'll put in a little bit of the top of the sleeve. It has a little more light than the bottom. Back in here. Okay, we're going to leave it at that right now. We're not going to have time. I still don't like that hole I left up in there, so we'll just try and figure out how to cover that. Although I do see some of these lights that are extending all the way here. Not strong, subtle, but it is coming up into that part of the shirt. So it helps. That makes it feel like that shirt is complete. We got the vest covered. We've got the shirt kind of covered. So now we're going to go in and do a little bit on the pants. Not much, because the pants are primarily silhouette. And what we have is a little bit of light. And it's kind of neutral, so it's not real warm. Let's start it about here. That's a little on the red side. So I just went back to the shirt color. We'll go to the top of the knee and then let it dissipate. Let it disappear. And then we'll go down on the front of that leg and almost draw it in. And then let it fade as it goes down. And then this isn't a line, it kind of fades at about this point, around below the kneecap is actually where it's fading, right about in there. And that gives us almost what we need. You get a little bit of a light, not much, a little bit here, a little bit here, but that's too strong. So we just push it right back into the paint. And I step back, it feels okay. One of the things that I want to get is the soles of the shoe. And they're, what color are they? They're similar value to the, let's try this. Similar, lighter than this. Not light enough. Let's try it again. A little bit lighter. I'm close. Bottom of the sole. And then it gets thicker. Okay. So we need to trim this down a little bit. We'll get the other sole of the other shoe in there. And that's right about here. And I'm not doing a New Balance ad, so I'm not going to necessarily put their logo in. If I had time, I probably would put something in there just to make it feel, I'm just going to put a slash. And we'll put a slash here. Okay, so it kind of feels like it belongs. Let's shape up the back of that shoe because it gets a little wonky there. And what I mean by that is a little firmer. There we go, with the back. Now, a little bit on the cup. Got to bring that cup out. I'm going to take, and I'm going to add a lot of light, and we're going to kind of do two things. I'm going to try and get this side a little bit lighter and let it fade. And then the lip. Nope, boy, I blew that. Let's do it again. Let's do the whole thing. Thickness of it, and then we'll put, and that's not bad. And then we'll put a little bit of a darkness. I may have to go back to this because it may not be as effective as I was hoping. And one other thing I didn't catch earlier, but I do see it now, and that is this dark that comes there. You can actually bring a little bit of dark back behind that cup, and in doing so, make it stand out a little bit more. That helps. Go to the back side of that cup, clarify a little bit. Okay, leave it alone. This has got a little bit going on in here. So, oh, wait a minute. Let's take an order of importance. Or as my buddy Jesse likes to say, hierarchy. We're going to put the light on the edge of this pole where it belongs. So there's consistency. Boy, that works. For it's not as refined as I might want to do later on, but for the effect of it is there. So we're going to come in. I think what I'm going to do is do a little bit there, a little bit there. I'm going to come in. I was going to come in light, and all of a sudden I went, no, you know what? I'm going to come in dark. I'll show you what I mean. So it's my two dark colors, little chirp, and we're going to try and right there. We're going to bring. Look at that. Let's do it one more time. A little bit narrower. Okay, so we got it. It's beginning to feel correct. Beginning to feel. Okay, keep that in mind. It's not That's that spontaneous thing. If you want it to be, if you want things to be loose, go back and change them, lose some things. Don't let everything be so defined. If everything's too defined, it's not going to have a nice, fun, cohesive look. It's going to look labored. It's going to look like you worked your butt off to do it. And you really want this thing to look like it. I've used this phrase before, and I shouldn't put it on everyone's shoulders, but I like it looks like the paint just kind of happened. But there's some control brought into it, but there's a lot of spontaneity. One of the best guys at this was Nikolai Fechin, without a doubt, where it just, some of that paint looks like he just scribbled it on there, but by God, it worked. And then when he needed to come in and make a face work or something, he went in and he made that face work. But in general, basically it was very loose, very indicative, and in some instances, nearly abstract. So a lot of times when I refer to some of these people that I bring up, I refer to them because they're the people that I look at. They're the individuals with that kind of that look that I want to achieve, but I want it to be off my brush, and I'm going to make a different kind of a mark than they are. And this is something that all of you are going to do too. We're all going to make, even though we're depicting certain things, we're going to make the marks that we make might be quite different. Don't, it's the effectiveness of your painting that's important. Interesting. There's a few things I think I need to change. Number one, I think I need to put a little bit of light on the top of that shoe. Too much. And which is going to now make me take that cup and eliminate some of the dark in it that was the shoe. And this is where you mess up when you're guessing. And if you just paint and you don't even do any drawing, chances are the little thing that I just brought up will occur even more, because you're solving your problems with paint, not with line. Where if you draw, you solve most of your problems, and then as you progress into your paint, hopefully you still have problems, but you're not going to, that's not going to be the same type of problems, the same maybe degree. So we're getting there. I'm just standing back. Kind of like this guy looks a little short. This guy looks long. It just makes him look like he's maybe 5'2" instead of maybe 5'11". And that unless I'm doing a portrait, it doesn't bother me at all. It's the character. Does it have a nice character? That's what I'm looking for. That's that band coming over him. Now, this looks pretty, even though it's kind of wrong in some areas, I kind of like the look of it. So I'm not going to mess with it a whole lot. I will hopefully define that elbow maybe a little bit more with the shadow below it. And if I need to, just lighten it a little bit so it reads. Not too much. The hands are still kind of wonky. They're not quite there, but again, it's not a hand paint. I want it to feel correct. So I'm going to add a little bit there. Top of the thumb. Little tiny spots of light that I'm beginning to see right at the end, a little hair. So it's shaping up. Now, I take a little bit of the background. We're just about done. We're just about 30 or 90 minutes in. So I've lightened some of the lights back here. And with a little warm, a little bit of the Naples. feeling of direction. So some of these are popping out too much for me. So I'm going to go back and paint over some of the other areas. And there is a pole. I'm not going to do that pole, I don't think. Kind of like this. So underdone. I'm happy generally with that. Put a dark here and a little bit of a dark here. Get that down a little bit more. And this is the kind of stuff you can adjust, just subtle adjustments. Told you what I was going to do as far as the look of this. It's going to be what I see there, but what I see there with more abstraction in it, not so much definition, because the definition is the character. Let's face it, that's who I want. And if I want to put maybe a little light there or there, that helps. Just any little, it's mark making at this point, making aesthetic decisions. And how do you get that? Exposure to art. I think that's one of the ways, and then practicing. And that's how you really develop your own aesthetic, your own personal aesthetics. It doesn't happen by just looking in 6 books and coming up, taking an art history course. It's literally something you really have to begin to work at and develop. So I think we're about where we want. I'm not crazy about that smear right there. I know I was trying to, let's see what I can do. I know I was trying to indicate the cup a little bit more. Could probably, with my last couple strokes, and we're out of here. We're going to add some more light to the top rim. Of that cup. That helped. Some of these light strokes I put in at the last minute I don't like. So what I would probably do is take any old brush and just smear it. Some of them work, some of them don't. If they don't, lose them. Think of it as rain if you have to, but lose them a little bit. So that's pretty much my my character for the day. It was kind of fun because I haven't done anything quite like this for a while. And I've probably mentioned many times that my first love has always been figurative painting. So, although I learned so much from doing landscapes, I can't even, it's hard for me to explain. So I think just practicing painting, if you're the kind of artist that I am, where you're not hung up on becoming really adept at any one area of painting, try it all, do it all, do it for practice, even if you don't do it for any other reason, and do it for fun. This is supposed to be fun. One of the things I usually try and tell artists, last thing I'll leave you with, okay? Everybody starts painting because of enjoyment. They don't start painting because it's like pulling teeth. They start painting don't lose that. It's very easy to get ultra frustrated and lose that enjoyment side of painting. Don't. Okay? That's your thought for the day. Now, if you notice, I didn't put that in. I didn't want to. It just calls more attention down in here. So with that in mind, I wish you happy painting. And I want to thank Anna, Scott, everybody who tunes in whenever they tune in. Even if you watch this later on, thank you. I do it. It's fun. I learn a lot. And hopefully you do too. Okay? Bye.